the Butcher McCaffrey Comedy Hour.
It's actually Jim Butcher's McCaffrey.
Okay, so, sorry. All right, who was here last year for the Fantasy Noir panel? Who knows why we're here right now? Okay, so see what happened was we last year had a real.
Wait, was I at that panel?
You were.
Yeah, you were very drunk and high. And I hope you are. I mean, I am now. I assume they are. So, yeah, we had a real topic of conversation. We were talking about books and stuff last year, and then suddenly these two guys went way off book. They just started telling wacky stories, and to be honest, that was the best part of the panel. So we thought, well, these people have traveled hundreds or thousands of miles and paid a lot of money. Why give them substance when we can give them garbage? So. I just figured let's get all of the worst people in one room and talk to them for a while. So, I'm gonna let these two guys introduce themselves if you don't know who they are, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, let's just make this easy. Hands up, how many people don't know who he is? Good. Okay, somebody
cool.
security, get that guy.
Yeah, get them out of here. Actually, let me do this. Okay, Dragon Riders of Pern fans, hands up. Dresden Files fans. Crossover fans, both of them. This is gonna be fine. Oh, and who's drunk?
It's not after dark, so we can't do,
Okay. Shut up! Go on.
Okay.
Tell us who you are, Todd.
I am Todd McCaffrey, but in a former life, a while back, this convention way out there in the wilds of Costa Mesa, California, came up with this insanely great idea. They said, wow, we're going to run a LARP. Now, it turns out that some people like that.
Oh, you're just going right into this.
I'm going right into
great.
it. Darn straight, you know? You got good material, you should use it. So, they did a Kickstarter thing, and one of the things they did with the Kickstarter is if they met a certain goal, they were going to get this group of LARP people in called Starship Valkyrie. And Starship Valkyrie looks an awful lot like, the Starship Enterprise, but not, because it's the Earth Republic united and strong. Yeah, so...
Earth Republic,
good old Earth Republic. So, anyway, I can't do the accents. He does the accents. Yeah, I'm just the straight man. So, anyway, here we are, and they said to Jim, I had not known about this at the time, they said, Jim, hey, we'd like you to be our guest of honor. Now, this is Jim Butcher. This con has got maybe 400 people there. But here's the fun part, Jim. You can be captain of a starship. So Jim said...
I don't want to be captain. Can't you make me like the executive officer?
No, first year.
Oh, first year I said, yeah, definitely. I will be captain. I don't know how to play this game or anything about it. They're like, perfect. That makes you the right guy.
Okay, wait.
And he does accents too, and apparently the first time he did it in a southern drawl.
Yeah, I spent the entire time.
Wait, I'm sorry.
See, the way that this LARP worked was that the captain was given a megaphone that he could use to communicate with the entire crew in the entire room, because engineering would be over there, and then tactical would be over here, and starfighter control would be over there, and medical would be over there.
You're literally Captain Foghorn Leghorn right now.
Yeah. And so we had to face this problem where the ship got moved into. We used a new warp drive given to us by the wonderful boys and girls at Starfleet Research and Design, and it was our job to test it while we were observed by a ship that was to remain at least 1 light year away at all times. So that was fun. And it took us into an alternate dimension where there were spirits and things walking around and all kinds of ridiculous nonsense. Really, we just had to do enough science to get out of it again. And science meant that you had to, if you were in science, in order to get answers to parts of the plot in science, you had to do logic puzzles. So you would have like Rubik's cubes and stuff like that you would have to do. Over in engineering, if you needed to solve an engineering problem, you had to do spatial relations puzzles.
rocket scientist, and he just fumbled 4 cups.
And then if you were in medical, you had to do mathematical problems combined with social problems. So you would have to do like Sudoku as the first half of solving the problem, and then the second half of solving the problem, you'd have to have a conversation with someone and trick them into, and get them to say a number of words on the list to represent the fact that doctors have to deal with people who lie to them. And so there were these different parts of the game, which was a great deal of fun. But as the captain, mostly you're on the bridge and you're concerned. You have to make sure that everybody's working together, and then that's your main job. And then your second job is you get to do all the cool action stuff.
So, 2013 ends, and apparently somebody liked it so much he wanted to come back incognito in 2014. And they said to me, "Hey Todd, how about you'd like to be a starship captain?" I went, "Oh yeah, I'm in."
Literally the last person I would ask.
Well, I now have the starship captain badge. So,
Damn.
So now, as Jim just told you, really, the job of the starship captain is go around to everybody and say, "You good? You good? You good? Are you good?" Yeah. See? Yep. Okay, keep doing whatever it is you're doing. That's fine. Huh? Okay. So anyway, I got this job. And Jim was there, thank God, because, again, as he said, as a captain, you know nothing about what's going on on the ship. Absolutely nothing. It's like, there's no rule book, there's nothing. You get a little wallet that's supposed to list your abilities, and oh, by the way, as a captain, you've learned so much and done so much politics that you have no abilities whatsoever anymore. You're done. It's like, you don't know how to pilot a spaceship, you don't know how to fire a gun, it's just kind of like...
You're too deep in. It's not how it works.
Yeah. So Jim came along and...
Yeah, and decided to be Todd's executive officer, and was playing a very dour Russian executive officer the entire time, with my patented Boris and Natasha accent, garnered from the Bullwinkle show, and some from Yakov Smirnov. And the entire time, so we were given orders, and I took these orders and read them, and was going to follow them because they were orders.
So we had to. Now the cool thing about this, they've got a really cool system. If you go into warp drive is cool. You go fast. You go da 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 da. Also, you take damage.
I'm sorry, you go what?
Yes. Ship starts to take damage when in the warp drive.
Yes. So before you take off, the science people say, "Hey, Captain, you should go ahead and research how to give us a better warp drive so we don't, or better protection so we don't get much damage." So the captain, having just said, "Take us out there, Mr. Sulu," or whoever it was that time, says, hold on a second. So the boys and the science people do the cops again, and then they hand a magic little thing over to the engineering people who can go, "Oh, look, it's bright shiny," and they install it in engineering. Now, my engineering crew, by the way, you probably noticed this too. You go into engineering and the chief engineer comes and says, "Don't stand over by that pillar. And would you like to microwave some popcorn?" And other things. And you're sort of going, okay, either this guy's crazy or I don't want to know.
The engineers are here. They're taking like these little plastic robot claws, like the little T-Rex, the T-Rex extender arms, and they're like very carefully picking up a piece of paper and passing it over to the person standing next to them. And you kind of go up to him, it's like, "Well, what are you doing?" And then you kind of look at the piece of the paper and it says, "Plutonium." They're like, "Please don't disturb these guys. If they drop the piece of paper, bad things happen."
Now, the other cool thing they did in this system is they had not just regular old humans, but they had cyborgs. Yeah, okay, hold it. They not only had cyborgs, but they also had some sort of psionically enhanced people as well who could get feelings. And there was a little bit of trouble between the crew. You had to sort of learn how to talk to people who basically were robots and people who were basically, Counselor Troy. But it got to be very interesting. So we go into hyper, finally, with the shields, the good shields. We get out, and we're supposed to contact this alien thing that's wandering around that might have actually nearly destroyed another starship. We are, by the way, the starship Takshaka. Instead of Starship Valkyrie. But so we're supposed to go ahead and investigate this thing, and if necessary, defend the local solar system. So we get in there, and the local solar system is being slowly eaten by these marvelous aliens. You want to be the aliens for a second?
Oh yeah. You get on board, or we get there and we start getting transmissions from the aliens, and it's this guy that's like walking through the room with a megaphone to simulate the fact that the aliens have taken over our PA system and are broadcasting to us. And he's talking in the fabulous movie tone voice the entire time. You too can be part of the greatest conglomeration in the galaxy, and all you have to do is hold your ship still. As these ships are going around like eating other ships and planets and so on, and transforming them into more of their own ships. It's an artificial intelligence, a drone that's been set out that just essentially is replicating itself. We're doing a von Neumann's War scenario.
Yep. So in any event, you know, I say to my XO, because he knows all this important stuff, I say, okay, XO, we need to contact those aliens, and if they're hostile, we need to take the appropriate action. And my XO, being our Russian goes,
very well. He had gone off to the starfighter bay or something to handle something, and he comes back. He's like, "We contacted those aliens yet, XO?" And I'm like, "Duh, Captain. Have hailed them with phasers, photon torpedoes, and plasma cannons, but so far no reply." Because we had been given, we had the orders. We had the orders to engage, destroy enemy ship. It was very simple. And just because they talk in pleasant voice does not mean you disobey orders.
I'm gonna just call this from now on butcher diplomacy.
Yeah, I mean, it was so hilarious because when I gave the orders to fire, both the people at the tactical station just kind of looked up at me like, "What?" "We out of orders, the ship is clearly, shoot them." Okay.
Well, we also had, on the Starship, we had 5, was it, fighters?
Or
4?
5 or 6, yeah, there's like half a dozen or so.
So we sent them on out, and the poor old fighters got chewed up by this big old ship, but we realized that we kind of had to be, it was a war of attrition.
Those poor guys. We really need out of here. You know, Todd be like, "All right, just hold on for just one more minute." "We don't have another minute!" Because they're running in real-time rounds. They're doing this fighter simulation game over at the other side of the room. "Just one more minute, we're almost there." "You don't understand!"
You know, it's not a good day to be a fighter pilot. I guarantee you they got medals of honor.
But there's several different kinds of weapons you can launch, and one of them is the serious ones are the warp missiles, and the warp missiles are essentially nukes. And we had been doing only a little bit of damage to this thing, and finally I was like, "Load up full complement of warp missiles and launch." And they're like, but that thing, it's right close to a civilian transport. If we're off, that civilian transport, if we're off by even a little, it'll destroy the civilians along with it. I don't know that the captain would like that. "Captain is good man, but does not understand that those people are already there."
One of the other important jobs of the captain is to be off the bridge when the XO makes decisions.
Where were you?
So I was over in the science technology section. We were trying to research.
You were getting a snack.
I was over in the science and technology section and also the engineering section. So I was in science and technology, encouraging them to research. We had to come up with a guy. Well, hang on.
The first thing we did was we said, "Get that guy with the megaphone off of our PA system."
The first rule is you never leave Jim Butcher alone with the warp missiles.
Wrong way. That's the other way around. The I want to die now rule is never leave Jim Butcher alone with the warp missiles. The I want to win this game and not blow up rule that close is let the Russian XO do what he wants.
Oh, yeah.
So you're hanging out with the nerds.
Well, yeah.
And the thing was he was dealing with the most experienced player in the room was a girl named Tara, and she was playing an android, the android head of science and technology. And so she would present these ideas to it that were utterly bonkers, but she would say them in this voice and this very steady sort of very serious. "Oh, absolutely, it's taken for granted. What we really need to do is to take apart a warp missile and reconfigure it into an ultra warp missile." And she would say it so convincingly. And we would kind of be over here on the bridge looking over at the other side of the room where this sort of thing was happening. and we'd just be appalled.
And I'd be saying, okay, so how soon can you get that done for me?
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So, and then engineering had to do something, and again, I'd go to the chief engineer and say, don't stand near that. Is it getting warm in here, Captain? And it's like, okay, and I go over to medical, because poor medical in this particular scenario had nothing to do. So part of my job is to also keep people from blowing out their brains because they're bored to death. So I had to keep the medical officers and the sick bay officers happy. Fortunately, we had a few fighters come back with knives and swords. It's like, here, take care of them. Aren't you happy? But we finally overwhelmed the ship, the enemy ship, and blew it up, and then...
And yeah, we were feeling so good about ourselves, too. And then this new super ship emerged from the chrysalis we just helped crack open. That came out from inside the ship that was far tougher and much stronger. We're like, oh crap! And so head of science comes over and is like, I believe there are some flaws in this enemy ship that I believe we can exploit. All we need is a robotic missile system to guide a missile into the enemy ship where it could detonate inside its armor and destroy it completely. And I'm like, oh, well, do we have such missile system? And the chief engineer says, Executive Officer, I am a robotic guidance system.
And so
let me get this straight. You mean to strap to warp missile, fly it into enemy ship, and detonate it from inside? She's like, yes, that is my plan. And Todd can't believe it. He's like, no, I'm not sacrificing one of my crew members.
No, I mean, it's a good crew member. It clearly doesn't. Can we get a backup, Can we like record engrams and everything? And yeah, he's doing that.
I'm just behind him going, and he's like, okay, I'm going to go over here and handle this problem. He goes off to engineering, and I turn back to the chief scientist, and I go, Godspeed, Matt Roberts. And I don't make the poor tactical guy fire her. Because Todd comes in, we launch, and it takes a while for the missile to get there. Like, you actually have to track it on this system, and every few seconds it goes a little bit further. And the captain comes back, and he's like, where's the chief scientist? Captain, I fired her.
She got another medal too. They can all have medals.
So she flies off into the enemy ship and sure enough blows it up. And so we put her in for a commendation, and then I requested from Starfleet that we get another robot of same batch.
So we did destroy the ship, and we come back, we do a debrief afterwards, and the engineering section explains that, oh, by the way, they've taken off all the safety interlocks on the power plant, which is why they were kind of worried and telling me I could microwave popcorn, because the radioactivity down there was super high.
Because we had to be firing all weapons and running all shields at the same time while still running as fast as we could to keep up with this enemy ship. And so they just never told us that that's what we were doing to the engines.
Apparently the guys who were DMing the thing for us were rolling dice every turn to find out whether we blew up.
God bless you, engineers. We could not have done this without you.
And I do like microwave popcorn. And it's like, okay.
So do they still run that thing, or did you guys just shut it down?
No, they run it. They've got ongoing campaigns out there that they run.
Yeah.
Christian Brown, right?
Yeah, Christian Brown.
And it's Starship Valkyrie. You can look it up now. Somebody offered me later on a chance to be on the Starship, the Artemis.
Right.
And Artemis is kind of fun, but it ain't this.
Yes, yeah, it's not as good as Artemis is fun, but it's not as good as.
Is it like a traveling thing, or does it just stay out?
Well, he needs to start making it traveling. The thing I want to do, and my big goal in life now, is to get him to do a release, so that when we do another one of these LARPs, they can normalize it. Wouldn't it be cool? I mean, and the captain was played by some schmuck named McCaffrey, and the EXO was played by Jim Butcher, and you can read the novelization of what they did,
Well, I was thinking this whole time, like, I would love to see you guys try to write an episode of Battlestar Galactica.
No, this would not be. I mean, Galactica's not the right format. It's got to be Earth Republic United as we stand.
United and strong.
United and strong. Yes, and then we can do other cool things. So yeah.
Please tell me you have other wacky buddy comedy adventures together.
Well, we were on this noir panel last year.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, well that's all. Thanks everyone. Okay.
So, how many people here are from Kansas City, Missouri?
Oh, there's one.
There's one. Okay. So there was a Comic-Con out there, Planet Comic-Con, if I remember correctly, and I was working at the Wordfire Press booth, and Jim was coming in to sign, and we have this really cool guy, nice guy named Alexei Vandenberg. Yeah. So Alexei.
I forgot about that.
Alexei wears a beard and long hair, and he was wearing a really nice hat and medieval clothing.
Yeah, kind of a long black coat, as I remember.
Yeah. And so Jim had to go off and do something, and Alexei was behind the booth explaining that Jim will be back later, and some fan comes up and says, "Can't you sign my book now?" And he's going, "No, I'm not Jim Butcher." And the guy looks at him and says, "Well, when will you be Jim Butcher?" And Alexei says, I'm honest, I'm not Jim Butcher.
And the harder he tried to explain, this poor guy.
And finally,
Look, man, you need to drop the act.
I got really mad, and so finally later on I said, hey, this happened, Jim. How about you just let Alexei, sign books from now on if he gets asked?
But instead, I made him a sign that said, "Not Jim Butcher." Pinned it to his coat. Yeah, I'm sure they didn't buy it, but
It's like your stunt double.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, you could pull it off. But yeah, that was hilarious. Oh my gosh, poor Alex.
Yeah.
How long have you guys been coming to Dragon Con now?
2006 was my first year, I think.
All right. 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Was it 99? I can't.
You're so old.
I just turned 60 this year. I thought that was going to be. You know what? It turns out it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. 60 is now apparently the new 50 or 40 or how old am I again?
Well, I ask because I'm wondering if you guys have any wacky con stories that you can tell us. That you can legally
No.
tell us.
Most of the time the cops asked us not to say anything.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I mean, as when you're showing up as a professional to a convention, you're kind of professional a big part of the time.
Right.
So that cuts down on your hijinks potential to a degree.
It's true.
So, and then after that, you're kind of trading hijinks time for sleep, and which is cool when you're younger. That's fine. As you get a little bit older, you start going, man, that bed looks really comfy. And then then it's a little bit a different thing. I got to take care of myself. I'm lifting and stuff now. I have to make sure I get enough sleep. But no, I'm just tired. Just exhausted. But I can tell you a gaming story that's really amusing. Okay. This is the story about my proudest moment as a parent. So I'm at a LARP with my kid, which sort of tells you a lot about the family. But I'm at a LARP with my son. He's about 16. By this time, he's about 6 feet high and just skinny as a rail and fast as a snake. So that if any of you have done any fencing, you understand that those guys who are 6 foot and thin are the nightmares to fight. Because they're kind of the balance of speed and reach that just makes them a pain. And the kid is just I've been teaching him to be a swordsman. I've been teaching him, well, not to be a swordsman, to be a boffer swordsman. That's what I'm really good at, is the boffer swording. But so we're off. I've been teaching that for about 2 years. He's pretty good at this point. I'm respecting his ability at this point. So we're off to a chapter in Illinois, and this chapter in Illinois, they've got an enemy that is like their traditional enemy of their campaign, and they're aliens. You can't call them aliens because that's all copyrighted and everything. But we know it, they're aliens. But they just did what Marvel did and called them the Brood. So we're going up, and as a result, their fighting culture is very, very different because you've got to have a much different kind of tactics to fight that sort of enemy than what we're used to down in the Kansas culture. We play in forest and plains, And our campaign is based around, is kind of loosely based around Native American / samurai stuff. So there's lots of small raid type fighting where you rush in and go after people and then out again before they can really get themselves together and reply to you. You don't carry a shield because that's wasting a hand you could have a sword in. And everything is based on speed and movement. They're used to fighting these broods inside these little tunnels. So everything is based on, we've all got to work together very closely. And so they had developed their phalanx tactics. So, you know, the outer wall of the group would be shields, and you'd kind of march forward slowly in step. There'd actually be somebody with a drum beating the step. And then inside the shields were the guys with the long weapons and spears, and then inside them were like healers and stuff in case somebody went down. So we're there with this group, and here we are, and we're playing Warrior and Warrior's Apprentice with the long black coats, and we've got the black war paint on one side of our face, and you know we've got the swords in each hand, and we are ready to be awesome. And there is no role for us anywhere in this phalanx. You know, here we are. So we're marching along, and these alien costumes were really neat. I have to explain them to you. The brood costumes were like these spiky bits of foam that stuck off from shoulders and abdomen, which would have looked completely ridiculous in the daytime. But at night, we were fighting on this peninsula that stuck out. It was a 30-acre peninsula that was surrounded on 3 sides by lake. And we're out there in a 150-year-old old pine forest that they called the Blair Witch Woods, because it just kind of went up to this enormous cathedral ceiling about 30 feet up. And a flock of vultures lived in the trees there, so every once in a while you'd stir them up, and it's incredibly scary. And then you'd have like moonlight on the water all around you, and these big columns and weird shadows going in every direction, and it was completely creepy and amazing. And so you'd sort of see these spiky shapes moving towards you. And okay, it gets better though, because for their eyes, they took the little tiny chemical glow lights, the little red ones, and taped them over their eyebrows, so you would see just kind of these red slits coming at you, and then these spiky forms, and then they get to you and start attacking you. And then instead of talking or making noise or anything, they just gave them clickers. So you would just hear clickers in the woods around you, like circling around you, and then the red eyes, and then the spiky outlines, and then they came for you. And when they fought you, they didn't really do a whole lot of damage, but if they got through your armor, they paralyzed your character. And so your character would freeze, and then they would just grab you and drag you away, never to be seen again. You didn't die, they just dragged you away, and that was it. Nobody knew what happened to you after that. And I mean, it was fairly nightmarish, and we're out there at about 2 in the morning. And going through this, we've been doing this for about 2 hours, kind of slowly fighting through with this phalanx, and the only thing me and the kid have to do is occasionally grab somebody who's been paralyzed to keep them from being hauled away. And we get to the middle, and the GM's like, okay, from this point in the trail on, the passageway narrows. It's only 2 people wide. And everybody goes, oh, mumble, mumble, mumble. 2 people wide? You can't have a 2-person phalanx. What are we going to do? And I kind of look over at the boy, and I'm like, hey, kid, you up for this? And he looks at me, and because he's much cooler than me, he talks less. He goes, yeah. So I said, we'll go first. And they're like, yeah, let the guys from out of town go first. That's right. Let them go first. And the GM's, I'm like, are you ready? He's like, I'm ready. And the GM goes, 3, 2, 1, game in. And we take off at a sprint down this hallway, at an absolute sprint. And the first guy stands up, and he just gets shredded. He didn't even really get to get on his feet before me and the kid were hitting him and calling damage, and we just turned him into mush. And we went on, we leapt over his body and ran onto the next guy. He was barely on his feet, and he put up a little bit of a fight, but we just slaughtered him. And the third guy, and the fourth guy, and by the time we get to this far, I realized that they're not laying a glove on us. And I realized it's because I taught the kid to fight. We fight in the same rhythm, but we were fighting on alternating beats, so that as soon as I shifted to a low-line attack, he was popping up from a low-line attack to a high-line attack. And there was nothing these guys could do. We couldn't have planned it that way. We could never have planned it that way. It just worked out that way. And these guys were just going down, and we were just beating them like drums. And we get to the end of this trail, and as soon as they're down, we're leaping over them and running to the next, because we've been doing cardio and everything. And we get to the end of it, and we get to the end of this thing, this stretch of the trail that was supposed to take our group, because the group was supposed to advance at the slow drum beat, and it was supposed to take them another hour and a half to get there. And me and the kids did it in 13 minutes. And we get to the end, and we stop back to back. We're standing there back to back, you know, swords in each hand, back to back, you know, and kind of looking around as the passage opens up again. And then we both stand up, and we put the swords away samurai style at the same time. And everybody behind us goes, "Oh, that was cool." And I turn to the kid, and I'm like, be cool, like we do this every day. We just fist and walk back into the line, and that's
in slow motion while explosions.
Yeah, that's my proudest moment as a father.
Beat that shit.
So Jim and I were on a starship.
No. You have actually you have a really great story about your mom on an insane road in Ireland because your mom was an insane crazy driver.
I'm not supposed to say things like that.
I can say things like that.
Okay, so well, what do you think?
There's she lost control of the car. Come on.
Was this before or after the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles attacked her?
It's your story, man.
This is a new story to me.
I heard an insane story about how your mom was a crazy driver.
My mom was okay. So, but I don't like telling stories on my mom. She's not here to defend herself, and also.
And she would.
And also, you know with parents. But I can tell one story because it's publicly documented. So so apparently my mom was driving my young niece at the time someplace and was going slightly fast and got clocked doing like 85 on a 30 mile an hour zone. Mom had a heavy foot, and she got pulled over, and over in Ireland it's not cops, it's Garda Síochána, which is civil guards, same thing. But you know, he said to her, "Well, what's going on?" And my mother very quickly said, "Well, I'm bringing my daughter to the nearest garage because she has to use the loo and she's desperate." That was the reason. So the local newspaper picked it up and said, of course, "Writer tells a Lulu." That's about as good as it gets.
I didn't bring you here for puns, man. This is not.
You didn't want well, okay, so people enjoyed Writer Tells a Lulu, huh? That's enough.
Get out.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that was not everyone's hand. That was a minority by far. I think the rest of them are disappointed at you. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Louder.
Todd told a terrible pun. You didn't miss anything. It's fine. It was a shit joke.
I can tell you all terrible puns, too.
Thanks.
All right.
Thanks.
So.
Yeah. All right.
You want to? Well, how much time?
All the time. Oh, we got a lot. Okay.
I'm
just trying. We're trying to debate whether you guys have burning questions or requests for awesome stories. We've got a guy with a mic, and we could pass it to people, but that's okay. Shit, I'm running out of stuff to ask you about. If you can't tell us wacky con stories or wacky driving stories.
Okay, so 2 years ago at Dragon Con.
Yes.
I'd met Kitty, who's now my fiance, the year before, and we had decided to come to Dragon Con together. We were here with her and her best friend Randy, and so everybody was like in costumes and so on. And so when you got your costume on, you can't just go back to your hotel room after you're done doing panels and stuff. You go out and you in the costume, and people stop you and can we get a picture and so on. So we're out doing that, and we've been out for a while, and this was a couple of years ago. They had a problem with the AC, I think in this hotel, because it was horrible in here. I mean, it was fetid. So, I mean, at one point, I'm like actually started feeling a little bit dizzy, and they're like, "Whoa, Jim," because they had to catch me, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, maybe I've got a feeling maybe I should drink some water. And they're like, "Okay, hang on, sit down right here." There was kind of a quiet spot up on the atrium level somewhere. They found a spot, I think, between hotels on those walkways. They're like, "Wait here, we're gonna go get you some water." So I sit down in this little waiting room, and Kitty's with me, and then Mandy goes out to get water. It takes her like, and we run into some friends, and so we're sitting there chatting. It takes Mandy like 40 minutes, and she finally comes back looking like she's gone through the nom. Just kind of like all rumpled and exhausted looking, because she had to fight her way into the bar on Saturday night, and to get water, and then back. And it took her like 40 minutes to get there, and then get through the crowd and get back. And she's like, "So finally, here's your water." And I'm like, "Okay, well, thank you very much for doing that for me. I really appreciate it." And so I drink my water, and her boyfriend Scott is there, and I finish it, and Scott kind of looks at Mandy and then looks at me, and he's like, "Would you like some more?" And I'm like, "Well, that'd be great, but we don't have another 40 minutes." He's like, "No, I'll handle it." He takes a glass, turns around, there's a water station. I swear to God, 3 feet behind us. He never said a word the entire time. That's the masterful part of comedy, is the timing. He turns around with the water. I've actually we've got a picture of us laughing about that on Facebook. Mandy was ready to kill him, but she couldn't stop herself from laughing because Kitty and I were so far gone laughing about it.
I feel like we need that guy here to give us like tips for trolling in real life.
Yeah, that's masterful. Well, he's Canadian, so yeah, I think there's some kind of advantage there. There's some kind of cultural advantage in trolling. But yeah, that was pretty hilarious. I just about didn't walk back to the hotel that night for laughing too hard. What is it about somebody just being furious in that situation that is so damn funny? I don't know.
That's not you.
All right, I'm gonna take questions. Let's see what happens. God, where's Alex? Get the mic. Who's got questions for these guys? Really? Nobody's got questions for these guys?
Wow.
There we go. There's one.
Question way over
This
there
guy.
in the very
It doesn't
far
even
back.
matter what it's about.
Anything. We're dying up here. That's good.
Yeah, there's gonna be like
You guys
a buddy
ever gone
cop
to the
comment.
Claremont Lounge?
What?
Say it again.
Have you guys ever gone to the Claremont Lounge?
The Claremont.
Claremont Lounge.
Is this like a comedy club? Could we get paid?
It's really not.
It's actually a comedy strip club.
I have no idea what just happened. Are we at? Wait, did you just ask if these guys want to star at a titty bar?
Claremont Lounge is an
You guys
institution of
pay union
Atlanta.
rates?
First and foremost, it's an institution of Atlanta. It's where strippers go to die. It is the last vestige of hope for stripperdom.
Okay. Did you just pick that mic up just to clarify that's where strippers go to die? Cool.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, man. Okay, we got a question over here. Man, you guys are gonna be like awesome strip club stories, dude.
Looks like they
Okay.
stage left.
No, keep your shirt on.
Is there ever a time where either of you have trolled or messed with a fan who either deserved it or didn't?
Is there ever a
Did you
time
have a chance
troll
to
or
mess with a fan and you didn't? But you could have.
You never.
Anytime you've messed with a fan, either one that deserved to get messed with or one that didn't. And
Maybe
you just
not
feel
a,
spite.
maybe not even a fan, maybe just a human in the world. Or even just great revenge stories.
No,
Messed
I-
with is such a broad term.
Yeah. When's like the best time you got revenge on someone for having wronged you in a really satisfying way?
Well, you're here, aren't you?
He's been sitting on that one for 10 years. Yeah.
She keeps coming back. Too.
Sucker for punishment.
Vengeance story.
Yes.
The only one I have was when I learned how to talk to bullies. I got picked on a lot when I was a kid. I was a nerd and I read a lot, and I was one of the smartest kids in class. I was also the smallest kid in class. And it's just possible I might have lipped off to people occasionally. But I got picked on a lot, and I mean, I got beat up a lot when I was a kid. There were several guys who would, basically they would try and find me after school every day, and I became a rabbit. I had different routes home planned every day, and different ways to get out, and so on. And I was a good and smart rabbit, but even good and smart rabbits sometimes get caught, and so I would get beat up. Not like all the time, but it was not infrequent. And this went on for a good long while. And my father, who was very wise, sort of very patiently told me, that, son, you're going to have to decide one of these days that they can't treat you like that. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? He's like, that would be as much as he said. And finally, one day in 6th grade, the little brother of one of the kids who'd been picking on me, who was my age, actually pulled a knife on me at the bike stop. And scared me out of my mind. And I mean, I was in 7th grade at the time. And I realized that this could be a very dangerous situation. And I had a bike chain right there. But I didn't pick up the bike chain because that would have been too easy, I guess. So instead, I started screaming and hitting him with my bike. I picked up the bike by the frame and started running at him, screaming and hitting him with it like that, because I reasoned if the bike and the tires and spokes were between me and the knife couldn't hurt me. And the kid, I think understandably did not know how to react to that. And so he wound up running off. And then after that, I was the crazy one nobody wanted to mess with. And suddenly all these people who've been picking on me stopped. And I realized that I had found the language that I needed to convey to them effectively, this is not an appropriate way to treat me. And you should not do that anymore. And that was, that's probably the closest to it. I'm not a big on revenge sort of person, so.
Yeah.
Which is funny because I'm good at holding grudges. I'm just not good at pursuing vengeance.
So, you were at Superstars Writing Seminar this year, and you told the story of how you came up with your brilliant novels. Would you please tell it again? Because it was kind of like every writer in the room was going, we're going to kill him.
Not if he's got a bike.
Now we know. I'm going to get myself like, a tractor or something and attack her. Anyway, go.
Yeah. Okay, so I had just gotten done getting my degree, my bachelor's degree in English literature with an emphasis on creative writing. And I was in, thank you.
Samesies.
And it only set my career back about 2 years. But I was in a journalism class in graduate school in the professional writing department at the University of Oklahoma. Journalism class was called Writing a Genre Fiction Novel. And my writing teacher, Debbie Chester, had been trying very hard for a long time to teach me some very basic principles of how to tell a story. And I had ignored her, for the most part, because she just didn't understand. She did not have a degree in English literature with an emphasis in creative writing. She had merely published 40 novels. So this went on for several semesters where she tried to give me good advice and I ignored her and wrote a terrible book, and then she would try and give me good advice, I ignore her and write a terrible book. And finally, one semester, I decided that I was going to prove to her how wrong she was. And the way I had an ingenious method for doing this, the kind of thing that only sounds good to you when you're in your mid-20s and in college and you're sure you know everything. I was going to do everything she told me. I was going to fill out every little worksheet. I was going to do every little character outline and profile. I was going to outline everything and do everything according to her dramatic structure. And then I would follow every direction, and at the end of the semester, she would see what terrible, awful, cookie-cutter, pablum crap emerged from that kind of process. And so I did it. and I wrote the first book of the Dresden Files.
But that's not the punchline.
You know, which showed her. Last year, she wrote me and said, "Hey, can I pay you to write a foreword to my writing structure novel or my writing structure textbook that I'm writing on how to write stories?" And I'm like, "No, you can't pay me to write that here." And I told, and the introduction is that story plus. So let me do this for you because I wish someone had done this for me. I don't know if I'd have listened to him at the time, but this is what I wish they had said to me: "Shut up and do what Debbie tells you to do."
But you also said that, as I recall, you said that she said, "Hey, this is great. Now outline the rest."
Oh my
now,
gosh!
please.
I turned in the first couple chapters to Stormfront, and she says, "You did it." And I said, "What?" Because I was used to harsh criticism from this teacher. And she did not believe in pulling punches and getting people ready for the professional world. So I mean, her criticism had gone up to and including rolling up my sample chapter, leaning over the desk, popping me on the head with it, and asking me, "What were you thinking?" But yeah, I went and showed it to her, and she said, "You've done it. This will sell." And I said, "Really?" Because this was far different than any response I got to her from her before. She says, "Yeah, I don't know if this will be the first thing you sell, but you'll sell this eventually." I'm like, "That's okay. That's great." She's like, "Yeah, now you need to go home and plan the rest of it." And she meant the rest of the novel. I roll back into the consultation class the next week with an outline for 20 books plus a 3-book trilogy. And she kind of looks at me, and and looking back, I can interpret her expressions now. I couldn't before. But looking back, I can sort of see her face. I've just gotten this dummy on board. I don't want to discourage him now. And so I very excitedly give her the outline of the whole thing and the big finale. And I'm like, so there, what do you think? And she says, she sort of looks at me. She doesn't want to discourage me. She doesn't want to tell me that I'm never going to sell a 20-book series to a publisher. So she looks at me and says, "Well, I think if you can get a 20-book series published, you should be doing fine." And I'm like, "Okay, great," and just went on with it from there. And then because I didn't know it was going to be impossible because she hadn't elected to inform me that it was going to be impossible, I did it. So I mean that was how, and then I did the Codex Alera. That was the one that I wrote on a bet. In 1999, I was a member of the Del Rey Online Writers Workshop, which was an online community of writers who were writing the material and letting other people review it and discussing the craft and the art of writing and getting into big, large discussions all the time. And so there was a flame war going on a particular topic. And the topic was that had gotten out was there was this idea, this idea of there were two competing philosophies. One of them that said what you really needed was the holy idea, capital H, capital I. If you had a good enough idea, it did not matter how terrible your story would be. A good enough idea would sell it and make it go. They said, look at Jurassic Park. That's written terribly, but how could that idea fail? Genetically bringing back dinosaurs, that's awesome. It's cooked into the idea. And then on the other side of the discussion was the side of the discussion that said, listen, it does not matter how old or worn out a story is. If the writer is good enough, if he puts enough of his own spin on it, his own creativity, his own presentation, he can tell that story again and make it new and people will still love it. How many versions of Romeo and Juliet have we seen? And so that went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And there was one loudmouth that was on the holy idea that was sort of the lead arguer on that side, and then there was me on the other side, on the writer side. And it was one of those discussions where the email comes in, you see it, you read it, you hit reply, you hit caps lock, and you start typing. how it goes. And so finally, it went back and forth for a while. And I mean, I was just an internet loudmouth at the time. I'm still just an internet loudmouth. I just have some publishing credits now. But
Just a few.
but this guy says to me, all right, why don't you put your money where your mouth is? Why don't you let me give you a terrible idea and see your creativity spin it into something cool? And being younger and less wise at the time, and being myself, I said, no, why don't you give me 2 terrible ideas and I'll use them both. So the guy says, all right, here you go. First terrible idea is Lost Roman Legion. I am so sick of Lost Roman Legions. All the Lost Roman Legions should have been found by now. So that's your first idea, terrible idea is Lost Roman Legion. I say, okay, I'll use that. What's the second one? He says, Pokemon. I am so sick of Pokemon. And so I took the ideas and I broke them down. And I said, okay, Lost Roman Legion, that's always talking about the Ninth Hibernian Legion is what people are usually talking about when they refer to that. There was another one that got lost going east and that might have settled in a village in China, which is very exciting. But what they're usually talking to is the Ninth Hibernian Legion who marched off north of the wall in England into a thunderstorm and were never seen again. Now, what we really think is that they ran into a bunch of angry Scots and that was all they got. Or it's possible that they might have abandoned Rome altogether and settled in with the local population. That's another theory. But in my world, I decided, no, what happened to them? Where did they go? They went off to the land of the Pokemon. I said, okay, so that's where they wound up. And I looked at the Roman legions, and at the time, Roman legions were about half Roman citizens and about half these German mercenaries. They had this whole following of camp followers that would come along with them. They were able to build the Roman civilization anywhere they went. You really couldn't have asked for a better colonization force. So, they go to the land of the Pokemon, and they settle out. And I give them about 2,000 years, and at the end, they've built this bifurcated society, that was half cities and half these German freeholds and half of a more Roman metroplexes. And then I said, okay, let's look at Pokemon. Now, Pokemon itself is a fusion of 2 ideas. First of all, the Shinto religion that believes that within every natural feature there is a spirit called a kami, and that kami is a spirit that should be revered and respected. And that if there's there's something like a giant mountain, that there's a great big kami that lives there, you should show it respect. But that even in something as small as a pebble, there's also a kami that you should respect. But if you don't, what's it going to do? It's a pebble. And then they took that idea and they fused it with professional wrestling, and that's where Pokemon came from. So I said, okay, I'm a fantasy author. I want to have a magic system. I'm going to base it on these Pokemon. We're going to kind of use these natural spirits. I need to have a name for them. I can't call them Pokemon. And I was watching Big Trouble in Little China. And in the background, they were just getting to the line of dialogue where somebody says, all movement in the universe is caused by tension between positive and negative furies. And I went, ooh, furies. It's even Greco-Roman. And so I started writing this story, and it was turning out pretty good. And at the time, it was 1999. The internet was just really getting fired up. We didn't really know how copyright law was going to interact with things that were published on the internet because this was still brand new. E-publishing was barely a thing at the time. And so I didn't really want to put it up on this writing workshop because then it might count as published and then I couldn't sell first publishing rights. So I turned around to this guy, I said, this is actually coming together pretty well. I think I've got a pretty good idea, but I don't want to put it up here because I think I'll be able to sell it. And the guy goes, oh, so in other words, I was right. And I was like, yeah, okay, man, whatever, you were right. And he got to be right, and I got a 6-book contract.
That was a really good revenge story.
Yeah, I guess it is. All right, well analyzed. English major back here. Well analyzed.
There's a question right there. Yes, Melissa, this guy, and this guy.
The one standing up.
Oh, that guy too. Okay, sorry. You guys can fight to the death later.
Yes, hi. Jim, I was wondering, do you ever get tired of seeing guys dress up as Harry Dresden?
Do I get tired of seeing guys dress up as Harry? No. But I do get tired of seeing them wearing hats.
got a friend who always mentions Harry dressing up to ditch the hat, but he also is the guy who you signed his Bob skull.
I'm sorry, what's that?
You signed his Bob skull.
Oh yeah, I've got to be like the only fantasy author working right now knows the best place to sign a human skull.
Literally nobody here was surprised to hear you say that.
Okay.
And where is it? Yes.
Oh, yeah, where is it?
Right here. Right back here along the crowd. It's a little bit flatter. There's not as many lines where the plates have melded, and you can write like Jim on one side and Butcher on the other, and it looks kind of balanced and nice. There's an aesthetic to autographing skulls, people.
You told us your proudest moment in LARP. I was wondering if you could tell us one of your more embarrassing moments out of LARP.
How much money you got?
Todd, I know you have embarrassing moments.
Yeah, but I'm smart.
Okay. In some of the LARPs, all right, the more hardcore ones, you're in game the entire time. All right, you're in game from when the game starts Friday night till it wraps up on Sunday, and if you're sleeping or something like that, too bad. So I was sleeping, and our group got jumped by giant wolves or something like that like actually got into the cabin and started fighting, and and here I am rolling out of my sleeping bag in my undies, grabbing for a sword and fighting these guys. And the fights, they go pretty intense, and you've got to have the little beanbag spackets, right? You take a little piece of cloth and you put a handful of birdseed inside it, and then you close it up with a rubber band, and that's what you throw at people instead of fireballs or lightning bolts, because it's safer than fireballs and lightning bolts. So I generally play characters that can throw packets at people because I don't really need the adrenaline rush of doing the sword thing all the time anymore. I mean, the time with my kid was like my last hurrah for that. It's just not as much fun for me anymore because I know how fighting goes, and it's not a thrill. So I like to be the guy who does the sneaky stuff with the packets that makes a difference. And so I wind up chasing this kid. He's my nephew. Out of the cabin, and we're trying to get him he's going off for help. No, we weren't fighting wolves, we were fighting goblins. We're trying to get him to stop him for going for reinforcements. And I wind up chasing him across this field, all the way across to the camp kitchen, where I realized that we are not the only campers on the camp. That there are some straights that are in cabins 1 and 2 that are there to go fishing and camping. They're cooking breakfast as I chase this kid in my underwear, waving a pipe wrapped in foam and duct tape in one hand and a handful of birdseed in the other. And I'm screaming at the top of my head, I call for the lightning bolt! I call for the lightning bolt! I call for the... Good morning. Playing my ogre, so my face is like covered in yellow paint that's like half faded, and before I could start doing using any of my abilities, I had to put my ogre teeth in, so I've got these 2 tusks sticking up like that. And otherwise, this middle-aged guy with a bit of a potbelly, just rolls in his underwear, chasing a 14-year-old kid.
Nothing wrong with that.
Who hasn't been there, though? I expect to see fan art of that on Tumblr tomorrow. Guys, we're out of time. Thanks for being here and listening to them tell stories. I hope you had fun. Yeah, if y'all could exit the door on the right, if we've got to clear the room, you can come chat for like 1 minute and we got to get out of here if you got questions for these guys.
I caught you and the last one.